Welcome. I was looking something up and let time get away from me. I apologize. We are at Mount Sinai. But there's something else I want us to look at before the children of Israel leave. It is a very big something. So if you have your Bibles, turn over to Numbers chapter 1. While you're doing that, let me thank those of you that watch us regularly. And I just can't express how much I appreciate your taking the time to go through this study with me. It may be, though, that you're new to watching us in our study, joining us. Let me introduce myself. My name is Lee Moats. I am the preacher at the Dexter Church of Christ in Dexter, Michigan. We meet at 8700 Jackson Road, Dexter, Michigan, on Sunday mornings at 9:30 for Bible study, 10:30 for worship, and then on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. for a midweek study. If you are in our area, we would be thrilled if you would come and join with us at any and all of those times. A lot has taken place. About a year had gone by from the time the children of Israel had left. In fact, the first of the month in which God had told them it would be a new month, the beginning of months. And they departed Egypt on the 15th day of that month, that first month, in that very first year, new calendar year. They have built the tabernacle and all of its furnishings and the courtyard. The priesthood has been instituted. A lot of things have taken place. But if you would turn over into the book of Numbers, and we find that there's still something else that takes place. We've looked at many things that have occurred while at Sinai, but there's something else. Now, you may not be familiar with this. We call this the book of Numbers, right? We get that name from the Greek translators of the Septuagint version. When the Bible was translated, the whole Hebrew text was translated from Hebrew into Greek. Because with the Hebrews, as they referred to this particular book, this particular document, it had a name different from what we're used to seeing. To them, they would take the very first significant, distinct phrase, and that would be the name. And so, as you read, doesn't matter which translation you read it from, it says something like this. The Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai, in the tent of meeting. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen the Lord speaks to Moses. So the first significant phrase was in the wilderness. And that's how the Hebrews know this, the title of this particular book. But the translators from Hebrew into Greek, as they were translating, they gave it a different one because of the numberings that take place. And so it is called the book of Numbers to us because of that. Same book, same text. The names have been changed because of the translation. And the translators gave it Numbers, the Greek form of Numbers, rather than in the wilderness. So, we find, let's read this. Chapter 1, starting in verse 1 and 2. The Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai in the tent of meeting on the first day of the second month, in the second year after they had come out of the land of Egypt, saying, take a census of all the congregation of the people of Israel, by clans, by fathers' houses, according to the number of names, every male, head by head. And so the Lord, why was there a census or a numbering that took place? Very simply stated, the Lord commanded Moses to do this. Okay? That's it. The Lord spoke to Moses and told him to do this. As we continue on to read, we find that there is a distinction made. It is not a census of all the people that came out of Egypt. It is not a census of all those that belong to the house of Israel. We're told this. Remember, it's every male head by head, but it's not every male. Verse 3, from 20 years old and upward, all who are in Israel who are able to go to war, you and Aaron shall list them company by company. And there shall be with you a man from each tribe, each man being the head of the house of his fathers. And these are the names of the men who shall assist you. And he gives the name from each tribe of the person that will go with Moses and Aaron and confirm, both help do the count and confirm that the count is correct. And we read about that starting in verse 5 all the way through verse 16. And if you get a moment, you can read that. We'll mention that again later. So when did this numbering, this census, take place? Well, we're told, aren't we? It happens on the first day of the second month in the second year. The Lord told Moses to do this, and Moses did it. Verse 18 says it's Moses and Aaron took these men who had been named, and on the first day of the second month, they assembled the whole congregation together, who registered themselves by clans, by fathers' houses, according to the number of names from 20 years old and upward, head by head. As the Lord commanded Moses, so he listed them in the wilderness of Sinai. Did you notice that this is a head count, right? Head by head. Not every male was going to be counted in this census. Only those who were 20 years old and upward, 20 years or older. And I think there's a distinction made in verse 3. The Lord said, all in Israel who are able to go to war. That's a distinction also. What if you were 20 years old, but you had some kind of infirmity? There was something that kept you from being able to go into battle. You would not have been included. What if you were aged and your ability to go into battle, go to war, you no longer were able to move? You were sickly. You'd had something happen in your life that made you incapable. You would not have been included in this count. Okay? So only those in Israel, only the men in Israel, only the men in Israel who are 20 years old or greater, and only those able to go to war are included in this count. Now, that's an important distinction, because remember, there was foreigners. They would not be included in this. Strangers from other nations that had come out with them would not be included. If you were of a mixed lineage and were not recorded in the family records because you had married into maybe another nation, you would not be included. And so there's exclusions. This is precise, and it's very inclusive, and it tells exactly what the Lord wanted Moses to include in this count. And if those qualifications were not met, those requirements, then they were excluded from the count. Now, we're going to move forward a little bit, because in chapter 2, as he does this, you can read it. I'm not going to go through all these numbers that are included, but notice in each time it will say something like this. Verse 22. This is just one example. It's throughout this listing. Of the people of Simeon, their generations, by their clans, by their fathers' houses, those of them who were listed, according to the number of names, head by head, every male from 20 years old and upward, all who were able to go to war. And then after that statement, then it would give the number that they had found. Moses plus the heads of these tribes, or their representatives that the Lord had given, had verified these numbers are correct. Yes, this person can go to war. No, this person cannot. Yes, this person is they're recorded in the family. They're a part of it. Or no, they're not. And we find in verse 45 of chapter 1, this statement. Well, let's go back to verse 44. These are those who were listed, whom Moses and Aaron listed with the help of the chiefs of Israel, 12 men, each representing his father's house. So all those listed of the people of Israel by their father's houses, from 20 years old and upward, every man able to go to war in Israel, all those listed were 603,550. I know that number has been challenged, that it's greatly exaggerated, but it is what we have. Okay? And if you add up those numbers from the various tribes that are given independently, they do add up to this amount. So we've got a complete census, right? Every male 20 years old and upward able to go to war that is listed in the fathers, that's part of Israel. No, because there is a different census that takes place. I didn't read these names in chapter 1. Let's go back and look at this. Starting in verse 5. These are the names of the men who shall assist you. Now, I won't go through all of the names, but I do want you to notice. From Reuben, it tells who will be there. In verse 6, from Simeon. Okay? Verse 7, from Judah. Verse 8, from Issachar. Verse 9, from Zebulun. Verse 10, from the sons of Joseph. And Joseph has 2 sons. And so there's 2 men given. One from Ephraim, and then one from Manasseh. Verse 11, from Benjamin. Verse 12, from Dan. Verse 13, from Asher. Verse 14, from Gad. Verse 15, from Naphtali. These were the ones chosen from the congregation, the chiefs of their ancestral tribes, the heads of the clans of Israel. Now, as you read through that, now this is not in birth order. It starts in birth order because we have Reuben, Simeon, and then there's a gap. Judah is listed next, but there was a son that was born between Simeon and Judah. That son is not listed in the rest of these numbers. We have 12 chiefs, 12 people that are picked, but the one tribe that is not in that list is the tribe of Levi. And so we shouldn't be totally surprised when we come to chapter 1 and verse 47. But the Levites were not listed with them by their ancestral tribe. For the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, only the tribe of Levi you shall not list, and you shall not take a census of them among the people of Israel. So included in that 603,550 men from 20 years old and up, able to go to war, there is no one from the tribe of Levi included in that count. How about that? Moses is told, do not include them in that count. They have a special role, they have a special purpose, and duties dealing with the tabernacle. The courtyard, the tabernacle itself, and the furnishings. Then we start in the latter part of chapter 1, and it tells that they will have guard over the tabernacle of testimony. Chapter 2, there is an arrangement. There is a set way in which they haven't marched out yet, but there is a set fashion, a set order in which the various tribes are to camp around the tabernacle. It seems that up until this time, people just camped wherever. But now, there is specifics that are being given. Again, I'm not going to go through this. You can look at it and see, since the tabernacle, the entryway of the tabernacle always faced toward the east, it would be easy for the children of Israel to know where they would camp, no matter where they were at. Tabernacle faced toward the east. There was the opening into the courtyard toward the east, and then they would be encamped around based on that central location. And we're told, and we're even told again, the numbers of the tribes who was to encamp on the east, the west, the north, and the south. Now, what about the children of Levi? Well, there is a census taken of them. It's separate from the one taken of the rest of the nation of Israel. In chapter 3, we read this, starting in verse 1. These are the generations of Aaron and Moses at the time when the Lord spoke with Moses on Mount Sinai. These are the names of the sons of Aaron: Nadab the firstborn, and Abihu, Eleazar, and Ithamar. These are the names of the sons of Aaron, the anointed priests, whom he ordained to serve as priests. But Nadab and Abihu died before the Lord when they offered unauthorized fire before the Lord in the wilderness of Sinai, and they had no children. So Eleazar and Ithamar served as priests in the lifetime of Aaron, their father. Okay, that's an introduction to what is about to be brought to us next. Verse 5, and the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, bring the tribe of Levi near, and set them before Aaron the priest, that they may minister to him. They shall keep guard over him and over the whole congregation before the tent of meeting as they minister in the tabernacle. They shall guard all of the furnishings of the tent of meeting and keep guard over the people of Israel as they minister at the tabernacle. And you shall give the Levites to Aaron and his sons. They are wholly given to him from among the people of Israel. And you shall appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall guard their priesthood. But if any outsider comes near, he shall be put to death. Okay? So the Levites are given to Aaron. He is over them. They are accountable to him for his protection and for the protection of the people that come to the tabernacle, into the courtyard and the tabernacle in worship. Why? Well, here's what we're given. Verse 11. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Behold, I have taken the Levites from among the people of Israel, instead of every firstborn who opens the womb, according to the people of Israel. If we go back to Exodus 19, we find that, and even before, that every firstborn son was to be dedicated to the Lord. There were some problems. He says, the Levites shall be mine, for all the firstborn are mine. On the day that I struck down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, I consecrated for my own all the firstborn in Egypt, both man and of beast. They shall be mine, I am the Lord. And so rather than every family sending their firstborn, whether man or beast, to the Lord in his service, the Levites were to take on that role. Why? It's speculated, and it may be true. It may not be, but it may be true. The issue of the golden calf, when Moses called out and the Levites came to his side, and he instructed them to go through and to kill. Okay? Now we have specifics. It's not every Levite. It's not. There is a distinction made even among the Levites. It's not all of them. We find this. Verse 15. List the sons of Levi. So it's the sons. By their fathers' houses and by clans. Every male from a month old and upward you shall list. This is different from the other census, isn't it? The other numbering. They are to list every male that is 1 month old upward. And Moses did that according to the word of the Lord. And according to their fathers' houses. Levi had 3 sons. You can go back and look at the genealogical record. Levi had 3 sons, and those sons were, they're mentioned by name here in verse 17 of chapter 3. Gershon, Kohath, and Merari. Those were his 3 sons. Okay? Now, those 3 sons had descendants also. And the numbers grew. So they began to number 1 month old and upward, males. And we find in verse 22 to Gershon, the numbering was 7,500. And we're told that they were to camp behind the tabernacle on the west side. Okay? And we're told some of their duty. They were to guard. The guard duty of the sons of Gershon involved the tabernacle, the tent with its covering, the screen for the entrance. And so they had specific things they were responsible for, the sons of Gershon. In verse 27, we read about the sons of Kohath. Okay? And we're told that there were 8,600 sons of Kohath. They were to camp on the south side of the tabernacle. And it tells about the chief, and it goes and it talks about their duty, their guard duty, the thing they were to take care of and protect was the ark, the table, the lampstand, the altars, the vessels of the sanctuary, the screen, all the service connected with these. Whatever would be required to use these things in the Lord's service. Okay? And then there was a 3rd son of Levi, Merari. And Merari, as they counted them, Verse 34 tells us there were 6,200 males, 1 month old and greater. And then we're told that their encampment was to be on the north side. So we have an encampment, people who are camp on the west, the south, and the north. Okay? And we're told their duties. Verse 36, the frames of the tabernacle, the bars, the pillars, the bases, all their accessories, all their service connected with them, the pillars around the court with their bases and pegs and cords. And we're told, though, and this is something that is taken as an issue of controversy, we are told that in verse 39, that if you add those up, that all the males from 1 month and old and upward in Levi, the tribe of Levi, were 22,000. Well, if you looked at those numbers, you know that doesn't match up quite right, does it? You've got 7,500. Okay. You've got 8,600. Well, what would that be? 16,100. And then you have 6,200. Well, that's 21,000 plus, right? But this is, they have rounded it up. Because we're told in verse 43, all the firstborn males, according to their names from a month old and upward as listed, were 22,273. Say, well, that still doesn't match up. But he's given us an exact number. There's not a rounding. It's very possible, in fact, it's very likely that 8,600 was a rounding. They had rounded it. 7,500 was rounded. 6,200 was rounded. And rather than rounding up, it seems that they rounded down. That's one of the things that I find interesting. That sometimes you'll go to the service station or you go to the grocery store and there'll be something on the little pad there you pay on, and we'll ask, do you want to round to the nearest dollar? And I find it's always interesting. They always round up. They don't ever round down. Very likely this was a rounding down to be able to come to these numbers. Doesn't mean there's a conflict. It just means they had rounded down, and when the actual numbers were 22,273. But there's something else that goes on here. That as we look, that because of this, since the Levites are coming, their service is going to be dedicated with their life is going to be dedicated to the temple, or the tabernacle as it is now, and to serving the priests, Aaron and his sons, and their descendants, that there is we'll call it a tax that is required. It's called the temple tax or tabernacle tax in this case. It is an amount that is due and is given to Aaron and to his sons as the redemptive price for those that were not taken. Okay? And we're given the amount of that this tax brought in. And the money was then given to Aaron and his sons as required. Chapter 4 goes into quite a bit of detail about the specific duties, the requirements that are given, the rules for those who are of the sons of Levi. Now, this does not include Aaron and his sons and their sons after them. They are part of the tribe of Levi, but the tribe of Levi belongs to them. They are not numbered. Those who are descendants, all the other descendants of Levi, owe service to Aaron and his sons, who owe service to the Lord. Okay? And so there's quite a bit of detail about this. And we're even told that when you have the sons of Gershon, verse 16 of chapter 4, Eleazar was the one that they would see to, they would go to, and was responsible. In verse 17, when it talks about the Kohathites had a lot of things to do with the actual tabernacle and the sanctuary. There were severe restrictions placed upon the tabernacle, deathly restrictions. And so the Lord speaks to Moses and Aaron, in verse 17 of chapter 4. Let not the tribe of the clans of the Kohathites be destroyed from among the Levites, but deal thus with them, that they may live and not die when they come near to the most holy things. Aaron and his son shall go in and appoint them, each to his task and to his burden. But they shall not go in to look on the holy things, even for a moment, lest they die. Okay? And there is a census taken of the sons of Gershon. That was the instructions for Kohath, the sons of Gershon. Now, we've already had a census, right? 1 month old and upward. But there is another counting or census that takes place. This one includes those who are 30 years old up to 50 years old, between the ages of 30 and 50. Now, if you want to know how many that was, turn over to chapter 4, and we read this. Let me find it here. I say chapter 4. I know that's not. I'm pretty sure that's not correct. Yes, chapter 4, verse 38. When we're talking about the sons of Gershon, between the ages of 30 and 50, there was 2,630 men. Okay? And again, not everyone. Well, wait. I thought we had 22,000 something. We do. These numbers will not match that. We'll talk about that. Okay, there's the sons of Kohath in verse 36. When they were numbered between the ages of 30 and 50, there was 2,750. Okay? And then we have the sons of Merari, found in verse 44. There was 3,200. Now you add those up, and you're going to come up with this number given in verse 48. There's 8,580 between the ages of 30 and 50. But notice, that's not every person in those tribes that was a male between the ages of 30 and 50. You say, well, why not? It was those who could come to do duty and to do their service. There was a lot of physically demanding tasks. There was guard responsibility, not just of the tabernacle and its furnishings and the courtyard and its furnishings, but also of Aaron and his sons. And so there were those who were infirm, those who were not capable of doing that heavy work. Sickness, disability, some type of injury that had taken place. It's not specified here, but out of the 22,000 plus that were between the ages of 1 month and older, those that were between the ages of 30 and 50 that were able to do the work numbered 8,580. And we already know where they are to camp at. Now, if you read from that point on, in chapter 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And they're quite lengthy. I'm not going to tell you that they aren't. That they wind up being there celebrating a Passover. Okay? And they leave Sinai in chapter 10. Time is up. If you get a chance, look at those. Look at some of those numbers. Do not think that there's contradictions or conflicts in the text. Those things are easily explained. It's not a contradiction if it can be easily explained without having to jump through a lot of hoops. And that is the case here with the numbers. We will hopefully pick up. It's my intention for us to pick up with Israel as they leave Mount Sinai. So until we get to meet again, may God bless you and may things be well with you and your soul.